What if I told you Final Fantasy VII could go from this to looking like this? In this video, I'll walk you through my journey of exploring the modding scene of Final Fantasy VII. Because let's be honest, this game's story, timeless and still talked about for a reason, but the blocky visuals and PlayStation 1's sound font, they can make that first step in Midgard just a little less approachable than it should be. So settle into your seat, cause there ain't no getting off of this train we're on. Final Fantasy VII is one of those games that never quite leaves you. If you've tried modding it over the last 20 plus years, you know it hasn't exactly made it easy to forget. From the CD-ROM nightmare installs and EXE patches, we've really come a long way since. Now, I'm sure through sheer cultural osmosis alone, most people know Final Fantasy VII hasn't just been remade. It's been re-released, remastered, reported, re-monetized, any way you can imagine. But there's something magical about modding the OG PC version, not just for nostalgia, but because it lets you shape the experience into something more personal. This video is meant to be both a showcase and a tutorial. I'll cover the mods I use with some slight comparisons, and then go through the load order using 7th Heaven step by step for you to pause and follow along when needed. We'll go through some visuals, audio, quality of life fixes, and even some nitty-gritty mod options for my personal configuration to help you build something that feels more definitive, or at least giving you the option to make it definitive for you. So whether you're a returning fan, a curious newcomer, or someone who just wants to see how far this old game can go, let's dive right on in. So, where do we begin, I hear you asking? You'll want to download the 7th Heaven Mod Manager. This will serve as your hub to download, install, and manage most of your mods all in one place. There are a few settings I recommend adjusting first so everything will play nicely together, but I'll cover that later through the install and configuration process. You can also look through the files Nexus Mods hosts under the Final Fantasy VII hub, but it will take a bit more effort to get them loaded into 7th Heaven, which I'll cover later on. Now, I want to be specific about what mods I'll be using, their purpose, and we'll go category by category. At the end of the video, I'll go over my load order and specific settings I have installed for some of the mods, complete with chapters to help navigate through the video. Timestamps, links, and any other helpful information will also be in the description below. So the first category I'd like to start with is audio, and what better choice than the EchoS mod, what I consider to be the most impressive by far. The author, Sunamods, has painstakingly added voice lines from community members into the game for nearly every line of text the game has, including battle scenes and dialogue options. He's also included a rudimentary day-night system, with plans to further develop it as time goes on. The core characters are wonderfully casted, and while not every voice actor is exceptional and the quality noticeably varies, the sheer effort and scale of the work to put in is absolutely commendable. It does seem as though while most of the text is accurate, I believe there have been some alterations to make the translation more cohesive and unified for the modern day. Overall, it has elevated the experience quite a bit, and the few times I've been able to talk with Suna while playing on Twitch was such a delight. Which, by the way, I stream over on Twitch at Hey It's Dale. Stop by and say hey, and follow to keep up to date with the content you'll see here. And while you're at it, go like this video and hit subscribe for more content. Leave a comment below with what mod you think deserves to be here, or what you're excited to try out for yourself. Well, enough yapping, back to the mods. The next entry I see as a 2-for-1 deal. EchoS isn't the only thing that adds audio, and what complements a VO more than great music. I've included 2 mods that rearrange the soundtrack of the original game. The first is EDMusic FF7 Soundtrack, which takes a more bombastic, dramatic approach to the music. In my opinion, it works very well to further enhance the dread or grandiose elements Uematsu's soundtrack holds. Some absolute standouts are pieces like Who Am I? Those Who Fight, Those Chosen by the Planet, and Genova. While EDMusic hits the dramatic beats well, the tension never really drops, and it doesn't cover every single track in the game. As a result, I looked into Symphonic Remaster's Redux to round out a softer, more symphonic side to the soundtrack to offer a bit of reprieve to the senses. The quality is wonderful, and the Overhaul does a great job at translating the intent of the original instrumentation with an orchestral flair. Some tracks to highlight are Aerith and Tifa's themes in particular. The last entry that adds audio elements is Cosmos Memory. Its goal is to update every sound effect and add ambient noise to various field and battle scenes. It even includes dynamic footsteps that change based on what you walk over. It might not sound like that big of a deal, but I cannot stress how much these additions add to the immersion while playing. The sound of stone or dirt crunching beneath your feet while the chirping of birds or the low rumble of an electric hum bleeds into the background does so much to add to the experience. Now I'm going to switch gears here a bit and talk about the facelift given to the UI, now compatible with widescreen HD support. The mods to note are Enhanced Stock UI and Finishing Touch. From what I can tell, ESUI is essentially a necessary mod for Finishing Touch to function. And while it has its own options to choose from, many of those options are locked to be further configured by Finishing Touch, so I'll be mostly talking about that from here on out. Through these mods, you can change character portrait art, preset background colors, the look of combat UI and avatars, and so much more. Going hand in hand with updating the UI, Cosmos Limit Break helps to upscale general field textures for use with widescreen displays, letting you use more of your screen size than the typical 4:3 resolution of the original game. Wizard Staff is a mod that overhauls the spell names, deviating from the typical spell, spell 2, spell 3 naming convention the original had in favor of the more modern spell, spell ra, spell ga the series has adopted over time. Personally, I prefer the 2 and 3 variations, but the consistency is nice, especially for first-time players. Even with greater audio and UI though, those blocky models of the original game can still be off-putting for some. Well, with the inclusion of the NinoStyle Models, you are treated to HD field and battle models, with many based directly on the concept art from Tetsuya Nomura. The translation works very well, and I'm truly amazed with just how well the models from the packs hold up. NinoStyle Chibi adds updated field models for the party, NPCs, and even vehicles. You are given a few options to choose from, and there's a bit of customization available. The models lend themselves well to the intent of the vanilla game, and the vehicles look absolutely stunning, with some varying options thrown in, like the Midgard truck replacing the buggy, or the helicopter to replace the Highwind. NinoStyle HD governs updated battle models, enemies, minigames, and more. One of the more involved mod sets separate from 7th Heaven is the Modder's Haven base model pack, which overhauls summons, save points, world map locations, and much more. I mostly use it for things that the other packs don't cover, but this is the cause for some textures that may not play nicely together, so just be warned when adding it for yourself. However, with that said, it is entirely optional. One of the aspects of the original game is that it runs at a very low frame rate, noticeable in combat when running at only 15 frames. The 60/30 FPS gameplay mod helps to fix this, patching the ability to run at a higher frame rate without breaking the gameplay to appear far smoother and easier on the eyes. In the same breath, Cosmos FMV can be used to update the game's FMVs, using character models to replace the originals. And hey, speaking of character models, let's update some of the field, battle, and minigame scenes to a fully HD and upscaled state. There are a number of entries to help here, including Avalanche Arisen battle textures, SYW Unified battle textures, and Axl Rose's Blender V1 to handle battle terrain. While some of the skyboxes may look a little off or clunky, the overhaul really does improve the high-definition fidelity over the original environments. SYW Unified Spell Textures updates spell effects in combat, meaning you can watch higher resolution animations for your summons or your W Magic Quadracast Ultima and Comet 2 spells. SYW Unified Minigames Textures overhauls portions of the minigame segments, making them read a bit smoother and easier on the eyes. Several mods also work together to update the environmental textures of the world map. High Detail World Map adds a more cohesive and better reading world map. Realistic Subtle World Map Animations is relatively straightforward, adding, well, subtle animations to various environments and features in the world. My favorite of this group is Cosmos Gaia, adjusting the world map camera to use analog controls and adds a curvature to the world, giving it a true sense of depth. Now that we've seen these mods in depth, let's talk about actually installing the mods and how to find them. So first things first, let's grab the mod manager. The process has been quite streamlined, thanks to a program known as Seventh Heaven. It's a program that's gone through several changes over the last decade or so, but remains the core of our modding experience. You can download the installer from the link in the description and install it to a folder of your choice. I have mine installed to a separate folder in the same directory that I have FF7 installed through Steam. If there are any dependencies it asks you to install, click yes and then boot up the launcher. Now at first glance, I know it might look overwhelming, but don't worry, you won't need to mess around with things too much. My first recommendation is going to the Settings tab and going into General Settings. Here you can direct Seventh Heaven to where your FF7 exe file is, located to whatever directory you have the game itself installed to. The next directory location is where any mods you find or install will be located and recognized by Seventh Heaven. Under the Options tab, I recommend ticking everything on except for Auto Sort, Auto Update, and Ignore Mod Compatibility. We want to be in control of the order of our mod list, when things update, and knowing when issues arise between mod compatibility if you want to experiment around. Under Channel Management, I've been recommended to check Seventh Heaven and FFNX to be on their experimental Canary releases for some compatibility. Click Save, and now let's go to the game driver window. From here, let's update our resolution and some other settings. Make sure the boxes here are reflecting how you want the game to launch properly. They govern things like which monitor the game will boot on, the resolution of the game, the aspect ratio, and scaling. A setting I recommend tagging on is Auto Run from the Controls tab, letting you move faster based on how far down you hold an analog stick while playing on a controller. Once you're done configuring, go ahead and click Save. Alright, and now on to the actual meat and potatoes of what everyone's here for. The middle window of the main display shows our installed mod list, with a toggle to indicate what is currently activated. The mods will be active according to the list, with higher mods taking priority over lower mods, which is why you'll see any fixes listed above their main mods. Let's click to the Browse Catalog box, and you'll be presented with a number of mod files that have been kept up with the manager's database. Some of these mods go all the way back to 2005, which we can see by clicking on the Released column to auto-sort the list. The process of downloading and installing mods is simple. Look through the list and double-click the file to download any that sound interesting to you. You'll see the progress in the window at the bottom, and when it finishes installing, you'll see it under the My Mods tab. From here, we can choose to toggle it on if it isn't automatically enabled. Some mods will govern various aspects about the game, letting you fine-tune what options you specifically want the mod to control. You can access these options by clicking the Configure Mod button, which will bring up the configuration menu. Once you've made your choices, make sure to click Save and move on to your next mod. And if you find mods outside of Seventh Heaven, don't worry, you can still install them through the Mod Manager. Click on the first button along the right-hand bar with the down arrow. When you hover over it, it should read Import Mod. If you download a mod manually, it should be packaged as an IRO file. Simply link the directory from the new window that pops up to the file. If you want everything together, I recommend keeping it near the mods folder we saw for the Seventh Heaven library in the General Settings window earlier. I'll make a few suggestions for mods that I really want to highlight. Otherwise, I invite you to experiment around and see what works for you. If you want to copy the mod list and load order, feel free to follow the link in the description below or pause the video and download the list here. The first thing I'll cover is Finishing Touch, the UI overhaul. Here you can configure the look of the general UI and combat UI, adjusting transparency, combat boxes, character avatars, and more. One thing I think everyone should look at is the controller buttons option, as I absolutely recommend selecting the configuration that works for you, as the PC port is notorious for having the absolute worst button mapping by default, showing the keyboard buttons even if you're playing on a controller. As I mentioned before, EchoS includes a day-night system, though it doesn't change much other than the amount of light displayed at the moment. If this doesn't particularly interest you, toggle off the system in its configuration box. A neat perk is that you can also have text auto-advance when the character is done speaking, saving on so many button presses throughout the course of the game. If you want to update character models that appear in the FMVs throughout the game, tick on the option from 60-30 FPS gameplay and select your model type from what's available. I like the look of the concept art a lot and find the NinoStyle Models to be a very good replacement. One thing I do want to mention is regarding Nino's character models. Here you can choose what versions of characters' field and combat models are, as well as vehicles and more. I've found issues with Tifa's field models having an eye texture that seems misplaced though. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the other selections to work, so I just stayed using the default character model with the FF7R field model in its place. And this is unfortunately due to the inclusion of the Modder's Haven base model pack. The music options are probably where you're going to spend a lot of time customizing your selections. I prefer most of the EDMusic options, and leave the default for any that I want the Symphonic Remaster to update instead. There are a ton of tracks to go through, and while it may be time consuming, it's definitely worth the experience in the end. Thankfully, you can preview what the updated track will sound like by clicking the preview button towards the bottom of the window though. And with all of our mods installed, configured, and in the proper load order, it's finally time to start up the game. Click play in the upper left of 7th Heaven, and you should get a command box prompt showing up. It will reflect the mods you have installed and let you know if there are errors preventing a launch. Provided everything is in the correct order, you are ready to boot up. The game will launch in whatever resolution and screen format you selected from general settings, and if you need to change the size, either double-click the screen to maximize or press the Alt and Enter keys together to go into full screen mode. And with that, you are ready to start an HD modded experience of the original FF7 for PC. Enjoy your ride, and just remember, once you start, there ain't no getting off of this train you're on. I hope you found this guide helpful, and I would love to hear about your experiences with FF7, or if any of these mods made playing the game feel fresh for you. Subscribe and like the video to see more content come out in the future. It really helps the channel. Let's see if we can get to 50 likes here. The next video may or may not happen to be about my last experience with FF7 with these mods. So while we wait for that to cook on the back burner, head down around here to watch my thoughts on Holston, a delightful indie horror demo that'll sure send some shivers down your spine. If you want to see the mods in action though, click up here to watch my full all-achievement playthrough of FF7 on my VODs channel. I appreciate you stopping by. This has been Dale at the Save Point, and I'll see you when we load up next.